In each of the last 2 seasons, the Bucks have had the #1 defense in the NBA. And a big reason for this is because they have multiple elite defenders such as Giannis, Brook Lopez, and Eric Bledsoe. But today I want to focus on Mike Budenholzer's defensive scheme. He expertly utilizes their personnel for the modern NBA, which isn't something Jason Kidd could say. So, let's break down the Bucks' dominant defense. Let's first start with their ball screen defense, where they play a very conservative style. What they do is have the on-ball defender get into the ball and fight over the screen while dropping the center. Brook's job is to keep everything in front of him, and he does it quite well. He'll drop as far as he needs to contain the play, here dropping low to contest this lob to Adams. He's effective because he's smart and a massive 7 feet without shoes, and here notice how he extends both arms so he appears as big as he actually is, and it encourages the mid-range jumper. And this style has helped them dominate the paint. Milwaukee allows only 29% of opponent shots to be at the rim, which is first in the league, and players will often stop short of one of the Lopez's to take a mid-range shot. Here, notice how DiVincenzo handles the ball nicely, and that's a difficult shot. On that last play, we saw a key part of what makes this scheme work, the rear view contest. It's up to the on-ball defender to fight through the screen, and if the ball handler pulls up, a rear view contest from behind bothers the shooter and makes this shot contested. As Lowry comes off the pick, Lopez will give him plenty of space to fire, which is of course why Bledsoe's job is so important, and here he gets the block. Also, as we rewind the play, what made this possible is Bledsoe recognizing the pick and then jumping to impact the ball. Making contact now lets him get skinny around the screen. Textbook. So we can begin to see why this works so well for Milwaukee. A giant center protects the rim as Brook does here, and a good on-ball defender pressures the pull-up. And while a rear view block isn't typical, it does happen every so often. Pat Connaughton is extremely good at getting this rear view block, and he has actually blocked 14 threes on the season, which is 4th most in the NBA. He has great hops and terrific timing to block these without fouling. But just the rear view contest is perfect. Middleton contests the pull-up, which allows Robin to stay down and box out the roll man. Brook and Robin generally stay down and don't jump, but the Bucks can still rebound when they do jump. Here, Brook contests the floater, which could let Biyombo tip in the miss, but look how both Giannis and DiVincenzo crash in and help Lopez out, and it's off Biyombo. Great team defense. Also, with this style, they can typically defend ball screens with just the 2 defenders involved. So here for instance, notice how the 3 off-ball defenders stay home on shooters instead of helping, and the Bucks will allow floaters. So with that in mind, they give up very little on a standard pick and roll. Guards will sometimes get separation and get good looks off the dribble, but overall the Bucks guards do a great job. Plus, off the dribble jumpers are often difficult shots they don't mind conceding. You can't take away everything. One last note with their ball screen defense is that they rarely ice sideline pick and rolls. And here's an example of ice, where Danny Green forces the ball handler's sideline away from the middle, and it can be very effective. One reason ice is popular is because by keeping the ball sideline, now you have the big rolling middle, as we see here with DeAndre. Now there's 3 weak side shooters, which means 3 weak side defenders. This makes it easier to tag the roll man without allowing a 3. So here LeBron tags DeAndre, Bradley zones up the weak side, and they contain the play. Whereas here, Utah doesn't ice and allows middle, and now there's only 1 weak side defender to tag the roll man. This is called a single side tag pick and roll, and it puts a lot of stress on Clarkson, and he gives up the skip 3. Now back to the Bucks, and here notice how they don't ice and allow middle, but with Lopez dropping so far back, they're not really worried about Biyombo rolling free even with the weak side empty with no defender to tag. Lopez can contain Graham and Biyombo no problem. So for the way they defend with limited tags, ice isn't a necessity, and they clearly value simplicity with their ball screen defense. So that's their base pick and roll defense, and now let's address the pick and pop. And their strategy is, if the big wants to pop for a 3, they won't typically switch or rotate to defend it. Lopez will still deep drop, and this allows a bunch of pick and pop 3s. This has been a frequent topic of discussion, especially when a big gets hot against them and starts hitting a few, as Horford has done to them in the past. And this strategy can backfire when the offense looks to actively exploit the deep drop. But I think an important point is that they're not just handing the center an open 3. Here for instance, Lopez is able to recover in time to Ibaka before he can fire. No harm done. Or here when Melo pops, Lopez is able to run him off the line and force a mid-range 2. Here, Lopez does get sucked into the paint, but with his length, he's able to close out to Baines and make this a contested 3. And sometimes the pop will be open, but the ball handler doesn't make the pass in time. Here, Morris is open on the pop, but Kuzma doesn't get it to him. So those scenarios happen all the time, and by sticking with their base pick and roll defense, they're doubling down on protecting the paint, which is the theme of their ball screen defense. Sure, they'll give up above the break 3s, but their defense has a clear identity. And if the opposing big starts hitting a few, they will adjust, which is what happened when Horford knocked down a few this game. Now on the pop, look how Giannis rotates out to him, and making a simple adjustment like this is always an option they have. But this doesn't happen too often because a lot of pick and pop bigs just aren't threatening. Some don't shoot a high percentage, such as Davis, who's a 33.5%3-point shooter. And others are like Ibaka. He's shooting 40% from 3 this year, but on only 3 attempts a game. So unless he's wide open, he's not much of a threat. Guys like Ibaka, Baines, and Embiid have slower set shots, which is common among bigs, and medium to low volume shooters, don't worry Milwaukee. And as we wrap up part 1, their defensive shot profile matches what we've seen on film. They only allowed 29% of shots taken versus them to be at the rim, which is number 1 in the league, and they allow lots of mid-range shots and 3s to be taken. Rim attempts are super efficient, so prioritizing interior defense makes sense in that regard, and also because of defensive rebounding. A study in 2012 was presented at the Sloan Analytics Conference, which showed offensive rebounding rates based on shot distance. The study is a bit dated, but it shows how mid-range and 3-point shots result in less offensive rebounds than shots near the rim. So when considering their defensive shot profile, it's no surprise they rank first in defensive rebounding rate, thanks to their personnel, effort, and scheme. Well, there you have it guys. Part 2 is up and the link is in the description, where we'll dive more into defending the rim and why giving up 3s isn't a bad thing. See you there.